What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Wealth Defense Radio, the podcast. I am your host, Josh Nahosa, and I am an independent advisor representative for SWAN DFW, which stands for Sleep Well at Night Dallas Fort Worth, which is the company that puts on this podcast. And I am here with the guy that founded SWAN DFW and hates the names that I come up with him. It is Hector and Josh.
Do you know what episode this is for us?
Honestly, no.
Yeah, me neither. We should probably look that up.
Yeah, that would probably be good. Hector is a certified financial planner, which is the top mark in our industry. He's been in the industry since 1995.
That's right.
And he started SWAN DFW...
2014, January of 2014. Be 11 years and 60 days.
Which is a whole lot of math to say a little bit more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
So, what are we talking about today?
Well, I think today we're getting a lot of questions about, can I retire? I want to retire. I want to retire now. Can I retire now? And we have some basic questions we go over with people to make sure that we don't pull the trigger on a plan that doesn't work. And that will be our podcast for today.
There you go. So just kind of what to know before you...
sign that resignation letter.
Give your 2 weeks notice to your boss.
Before you do that, call me. Or
burn all the bridges.
And then say,
I'm never coming back.
Psych.
And you're like, I need to work another
5 years.
Yeah. So this is things to consider before doing.
Yes. Before you pull the trigger, before you walk into your boss's office. And we've had a couple of those people that call me and say, can I quit now? And a couple times, both times I had to say, you can, but all of that stuff you wanted to do, we're not going to be able to do because we're going to have to get your budget big. So anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yep. But first, you have an exciting news story this week.
Yeah, I listened to The Ticket in the morning, and they have the 7:15 newscast, or I forget what they call it. But anyway, yeah, some guys had a Rolls Royce, or a guy had a Rolls Royce in California, and that's a very expensive car. And now it was older. I think it's like 2010 or 2011. Still a very expensive car. Sure. And he reported to his insurance company that a bear had broken into his car and torn up all the upholstery and all the inside. And he was filing a pretty severe claim because it's a very expensive car. And to prove it, he said that his home surveillance cameras had actually caught the bear in the car. What could go wrong?
Open and shut
case. Except for the police looked at that and thought something just doesn't look quite right. So they took it to, they said a biologist. I suspect it's somebody else, but anyway, they took it to a scientist who knows apes, I guess, or bears.
Yeah.
A bearologist.
Yeah.
It's such a thing. Term. It's a technical term. Not very many people know that. The scientist said, yeah, that's not a bear. That's a human in a bear costume. Well, having their idea confirmed, their suspicions confirmed, they went in, got a search warrant, and walked into the guy's house. And guess what? They found a bear costume. And it had, I think, an LA Clippers t-shirt on. Don't know if the bear in the car had an LA. But yeah, so 4 or 5 of those guys got charged with insurance fraud for a wonderfully devised plan that was obviously thought about when they weren't sober. And I'm not sure how they tore up the car. But so moral of the story, don't have a bear tear up your car and hide, what would you call it? The bear outfit.
The bear suit.
The bear suit in your car. Wow, we did a lot of good stuff there. We saved a lot of people a lot of headaches.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of effort to go into for... You can't be getting that much on an insurance. Even for Rolls Royce, this is not a life-changing amount of money, surely. To split with 5 people.
Yeah, don't know the backstory. It would be interesting to hear it. Not sure how you tear up a car. Hopefully, they weren't sitting in the car having an adult beverage and said, we need a new upholstery in this, but we don't want to pay for it. I've got an idea.
Got it.
Surefire idea. This will be awesome. So they will be guests of the California state prison system for the next 2 to 5 years, probably.
Yeah. Big week for animals because the monkeys broke out of the South Carolina biolab this week. Yeah. Not insurance.
Not insurance fraud. Well, we don't know. Maybe they broke into Mercedes-Benz on these.
Possible. Good news on that, though. They have found one. So they only 42 left.
Did he flip on the other 42?
I don't know. I don't think they've asked. I don't think the TV, translator is a big problem with that. I think
you always take the low guy and you flip him for the next guy, and then that's how they wrap up the whole series in 1 hour. But
there you go.
Should be easy.
All right. Back to our originally scheduled programming.
Yeah.
Some things to think about before you pull the trigger on retirement.
Yeah.
And the first thing is, what are your goals?
Yeah.
In retirement.
Yeah. And are you stepping into retirement? Are you walking towards retirement? Or are you running from a terrible job? And, one of the things that we talk about a lot is, we're getting ready to take 40 to 60 hours a week that you've been committed to for probably the last 20, 30, 40 years. And it's a big life change. And, what are you going to do with all that time? I mean, especially for men, but probably for some women, what we do for a living is who we are. And so you need to think about when I'm not the engineer anymore, when I'm not the whatever, the scientist anymore, when I'm not the software maker anymore, who am I? And so those kind of things, I know they sound and they are emotional. This is a big life change. And we need to make sure that we know how we're going to fill that time. Playing golf every day, not a good fix. I've had people try that, and after about 60 days, they call and go, man, this is like work. Having to get up every day and then trying to find people to play golf because, everybody else is still working. And golf is such an easy sport that it just keeps getting better. The more you play, the better you get. Not a perfect example of that. Uh-huh. So you need to have, what are you going to do? Are you going to volunteer? Are you going to do part-time work? Are you going to take care of the grandkids? How are you going to fill your time sitting on a recliner or rocking recliner watching reruns of Lucy? Again, not a good probably thing to do. So be thinking about that before you pull the trigger.
Yeah, I think we've talked about before the importance of knowing what you're going to spend your time doing in retirement, because you're not just going to sit and watch binge TV shows. It's going to be awesome for like a month, and then you're going to have watched you're going to have watched every single episode of NCIS or Law and Order. That would take longer
than 10 years of that.
Whatever, but you need to know, is it volunteering? Is it a part-time job? Is it a new hobby? Like, what is it you're going to do is an important thing to think about that I don't think a lot of people think about.
Right. And you need, as much as you may not like the people you're working with, and that's maybe one of the reasons you're walking away from, you're still going to need physical. You want to be in contact with other people, share ideas, tell jokes, talk about bears breaking into Rolls Royces. You need that interaction, the human interaction, and you got to get it somewhere. So so be thinking about that as you start thinking about transitioning into retirement.
Yeah. The next thing here is, can you afford to retire early, if that's something you're thinking about, once you consider healthcare?
Yeah, that's a real important thing, because at 65, most Social Security benefits, full retirement age, what's called FRA, full retirement benefits start at 67 now, somewhere between 66 and 67. That's law when they fixed Social Security forever. In the 80s, they rolled that back to 67. But Medicare stayed at 65. So you can start getting medical benefits at 65 from Medicare, which is not expensive. I mean, we can get it for about most people can get it about $175 a month, Medicare Part B. And we have a whole deal on Medicare that you can go find it, and we did a whole deal. But if you're trying to retire, say at 60 or at 61, now you got 4 years, 5 years of health insurance that we need covered, because if you don't cover that, one big medical expense can wipe out an entire portfolio. Most bankruptcies in the United States happen because of medical bills and stuff like that. So you want to make sure you're covered. But to cover a male and a female at around 60 is about $24,000 a year. So if we had set a plan that said you're going to retire with after-tax income of $80,000, and we had a score of 90 or 95 or something, and it was really good, we got to go look, and can we afford that $24,000 a year for those 5 years? That's another $100,000 of expense, and that happens at exactly the wrong time because we're taking money out of the portfolio earlier. And so it can have a lot of impact downrange. What we don't want to do is have you run out of money at 80 because you don't have any options at 80 or 85. So we want to make sure that before you pull the trigger, we got health insurance covered. So that's a big question to ask. On top of, okay, what are you going to need to retire? What's the income need to maintain your lifestyle? What are you going to need? And then on top of that, are you going to need other pots of money for a travel budget or a home improvement budget or grandchildren budget or whatever, because everybody's different. And we just need to make sure that you're going to retire to a place where you're going to be able to sleep well at night.
Well, before we get into that part of it, let's go back to the medical part.
Okay.
You said a really important thing, and just kind of...
Everything I said was really important.
I would debate otherwise.
Okay.
But another thing I don't think a lot of people know, because I was listening to a different podcast earlier in the week, and they said the same thing that you said. They were talking about the medical situation in America, and kind of how weird and like messed up it kind of is, honestly. And they dropped the number one cause of bankruptcy in America is
medical,
because of medical. And I think that's a pretty wild thing that I don't think a lot of people are like aware of like know.
Yeah, you get a really bad diagnosis. Yeah, it can be really bad. And that scares a lot of people now because the new administration that's coming in has talked about reforming medical insurance and the Affordable Care Act. There's hundreds of millions of people on that, and we didn't have that before that came along in 2012. So there's a lot of people really nervous about what the new administration might do when it comes to healthcare.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to hear them say that and then you say that. But I think it's like worth noting. This is like a serious thing. Like it happens to a lot of people. It's not just like a couple of people suddenly are bankrupt because of bad medical diagnosis or bad planning. Like this is a pretty chronic issue across.
It is. And because people don't buy health insurance because it's expensive, right? How many times have we heard that? Oh, I can't afford health insurance, and so they go along and they self-insure, and so long all you're doing is breaking a leg or having teeth pulled, and you got an $8,000 to $10,000 or less per year medical costs, you're okay. But if you ever get that ALS diagnosis or that cancer diagnosis, and usually the hospitals will perform whatever they got to perform to keep you alive, but they're going to bill you. And if you don't have insurance, and that's why for a long time catastrophic insurance was the way to go, but that's not an option anymore. So, praying that we'll come up with a good way of protecting people in America, keeping them from financial ruin.
Yeah. So let's get into the last point we have here is, do you know what you need to retire? To like maintain your lifestyle?
Yeah. And I think that's real important. And every time we talk to people and we say, do you have a budget? Their eyes gloss over and they hate talking about budgets. And so because we're good at what we do, we've changed the word to, do you have a spending plan? Do you know what it's going to cost you to maintain your lifestyle? And for most people that have started saving a little early, we just try to take their take-home pay right? If they're living on their take-home pay right now and we can replace 90 to 100% of that, they're going to maintain a good lifestyle, because in that take-home pay, they've got a lot of expenses, going to and from work, buying clothes for work, and if you've never worked in a big company, but if you work in an office of 100 people, every day somebody's having a birthday and they're coming around saying, can you kick in, 10 or 20 bucks? And that adds up. And when you're retired, you people that are retired don't usually celebrate birthdays because it reminds them how much closer they are to mortality. So that saves a little money. Except me, because I just threw myself a birthday party a few weeks ago.
It turned dark quick, didn't it?
Well, dark humor is good. So, yeah. And then if you're paying for vacations, say, out of your take-home pay, well, then that's easy. But if you're using, say, bonuses that one or both of you all are getting to cover vacation pay or home improvements and stuff like that, the sad part is once you retire, you're not going to get those bonuses anymore. So if we're going to continue to need an extra whatever, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a year for travel, we need to set up an expense for that and then cover it through whatever age, 80 or 85. While I'm thinking about it, if travel is in your future, do it sooner rather than later. Because in a blink of an eye, everything can change. Your health can deteriorate quickly. I had a guy who was in great shape, was a runner. His wife stayed home, had cancer. This was probably 10 years ago. We had a big freeze, not the big freeze. And he went outside to, I think, get the newspaper or something and slipped on the ice and broke his kneecap. And that just changed his life. Almost immediately hard to walk, even with replacement surgery and all of that. So if you're thinking about traveling in retirement, do it sooner rather than later. And let's make sure that we plan for that expense so that you're not on vacation watching the stock market go down and say, man, we shouldn't have come here. One, that kind of takes the joy out of vacation. And two, I really want a steak, but I think I'm going to have a salad or I'm going to have a McDonald's because the market is down and I don't want to outspend my money. That doesn't work either. So let's make sure we've accounted for all that before you take your letter into your boss and say, I'm out of here.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Well, if you would like to talk to two financially very good people.
So anyway, you were going to start that over. How about professionals?
Yeah, if you would like to talk to two financial professionals
that have been doing this for a while.
Podcast on the side. If you're watching us right now on YouTube or Spotify or Facebook or any of the other...
all those places? Man, we're popular.
Oh yeah. We have a couple different ways that you can contact us. The first way is with an email address, and that is info@swandfw.net. That'll be on the screen, but for those of you just listening, that's info, like short for information, at swan, like the bird, dfw.net. And then we have a phone number, and that is 888-792-6339 or 888-SWAN-DFW.
And while I'm thinking about it, when I talk to people, they go, but Hector, I'm smarter than you are, and I can do all the research that you do, and I can, follow in stocks, and I can buy, and I can plan, and that's true. Except that when you do that one time, when you finish retiring, you will have learned a lot. And there's probably a lot of things you'll look back on and say, man, I wish I would have done that. Well, we have helped lots of people into retirement. We've walked through those tricky situations and we have figured things out with other people. So just like you will be smarter once you complete your retirement one time, but you won't get a chance to do it again, we've done it several times and we have a lot of people really enjoying their retirement. And so use our expertise for that. And I think you said, or we have people that use financial advisors or financial planners, even after the fee that they pay us, end up with something like 14 or 15% more money, right?
Yeah.
In retirement account. So you have more money, you have less headaches, and you're using more experience. To me, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah. You know, I think 71% of adults admit that they need financial improvement. From Northwest Mutual posted that study.
Yeah. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And if you're one of them, you happen to be listening to a pretty good podcast.
Mm-hmm. Give us a call. It's free to call, free to email.
Yeah. No, and the first, you're never going to write us a check. Usually. You're never going to write us a check. And we're gonna talk, and if we can help you, we'll figure out how to do that. And if we can't help you, we'll point you in the right direction.
Yep. Thank you guys for listening. It will catch you all in the next one.
Yep. Have a blessed day. Thank you.
The preceding content is informational only and based on information available when created. It is not an offer or solicitation, nor is it tax or legal advice. It does not consider your financial circumstances and objectives and may not be suitable for you.